hope Adrien has a good Christmas.
Shut the f up, Marinette.
Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Anarchy, your favorite artistic little hellspawn. If you like what you see here, I hope you stick around. I am so sorry that I've been dead the last 2 months. I've been going through a lot of my personal life that gave me some of the worst art block of my life. And you may be wondering, Anarchy, why are we back in the building? You said a lot. You said a lot of things. And yet you're back in the same building that you were talking about, wanting to get out of. How did we get here? Well, my friends, that is because through that art block, I realized I kinda miss Miraculous Nouvelle Vie. Now, hear me out, okay? In my time away, I've become really close to fellow creators Pistachiomi and Cinnamon Spiders. And one of the big things we often talk about is Miraculous. I would even watch the new episodes just to talk about it with them. And that's when I kinda realized something. I do like Miraculous in a very weird and twisted way. I like talking about it, I like drawing it. I even started getting into other old hyperfixations that could be considered badly written and cringe, like Servamp, Ruby, and even Eddsworld. Miraculous wasn't the problem. I was the problem. I, yet again, let my imposter syndrome and perfectionism corrupt my work and make decisions for me. I loved working on Miraculous Nouvelle Vie. That wasn't the problem. I was just worried that was all that was going to be known as, and that my other work would fade into obscurity. But frankly, this channel needs to have a balance. Amity has become such a big project that at this point it's going to need something to be filler while I work on those videos. So I really hope you guys aren't annoyed about my flip-flopping. I promise I'm done. And with that said, let's bring back this beloved AU. Welcome back to Miraculous Nouvelle Vie. So the lore about the Miraculouses is basically the same, but for anyone new or if you just forgot, I'm gonna go over it real quick. At the start of everything, there were two cosmic beings, the mother of harmony and the father of chaos, also known as creation and destruction. Their existence brought balance upon the universe, and to bring something more personal into the universe, the mother of creation created the first Kwamis, beings made from pure concepts like emotion, perception, protection, subjugation, and devotion. Every other Kwami that exists now come from these original core Kwamis, branching out from one of those core forces as new ideas waited in the universe. But the Kwamis didn't have structure or a form at first. They were just presence, powerful and chaotic. So the first guardian, a mortal chosen by the mother herself, created the Miraculouses, magical jewels that could contain and stabilize each Kwami's energy. But they needed a human host to ground them, so the Kwamis would bond with humans whose souls resonated with their concept, and that's how the first miraculous wielders were born. For a while, their cause was noble. Guardians trained holders in secret sanctuaries around the world, trying to keep balance between humans and these cosmic forces. But over time, things started to crack. Some Guardians became controlling. Some Kwamis started to push their concepts in strange new directions. People started to argue over what those concepts meant. Was protection about defense or about control? Was destruction about liberation or about entropy? Was devotion about love or obsession? Eventually, one guardian tried to break the cycle. He couldn't stand to see what their cause had become, and when someone he cared about was pulled into it, he made a desperate choice, using the damaged Peacock Miraculous to create a Sentimonster as part of a plan to help her escape the life of a holder entirely. But this went wrong. Horribly wrong. The sanctuary collapsed during the confrontation, the peacock malfunctioned, people died, and the connection to all other sanctuaries around the world was lost. And in the aftermath, memories were erased and the Miraculouses were scattered. The island known as the heart of the sanctuaries would fall into the sea, never to be heard from again outside of urban legend. Now everything is fragmented. Some Miraculouses are missing, others are being misused, and a few hidden sanctuaries are still out there, twisted, decaying, or trying to rebuild something from the wreckage of what used to be a cause worth fighting for. Now, I would get into each and every Kwami and their abilities themselves, considering there are some I either completely axed, like the rooster, or I completely changed, like the rabbit. I just completely removed the time travel ability. but when I tried to force it into the script, it made the video way longer and way more complicated than I could handle, so I think it will be best to just describe the Kwame's abilities in association to the characters I'm drawing them with. So for now, you can just see the Kwames that are in the box. You can see that I kept most of the Chinese Zodiac Kwames. I know I said I wanted to like remove them so that way they can be put into a Chinese box and Chinese Miracle box and the Shanghai special, but frankly I think I can just make up new ones for that. However, before I get into our main duo, I have a big disclaimer that I want to put here to avoid confusion, considering even with the old videos I'm still getting comments about it. This reimagining is set in a completely different universe with a completely new and separate cast from the original. So essentially, each character in this series is basically an OC that is simply based on a Miraculous character. So again, while Mei is inspired by Marinette, she is not meant to be Marinette. I hope this makes sense. With that said, let's get started. Just before that though, I'm happy to announce that this video is brought to you by UnVale. If you haven't heard, UnVale is a creative platform built by and for artists, writers, and character creators. Basically all the little weirdos like us that love making stories and torturing our OCs. And the best part, it's AI free, anti-NFT, and is completely community based. Its platform works and functions in a way so that everyone, no matter your skill set or community size, has an equal opportunity to get their work seen. You can make full character pages with lore, traits, and art galleries, write stories with full formatting, and even build whole universes with friends using their worlds feature. It's like a cozy little multiverse for your OCs. I've honestly never seen a site this welcoming in a long while, and it makes me so happy. And I'm actually currently working on my own UnVale pages for Amity, though those are really taking a long time. So if you're looking for a place to share your creations without the pressure of algorithms, or just want to stay organized so none of your OCs fall into the void, UnVale might be exactly what you need. Click the link below to join UnVale and start building your world today. Be sure to tell them Anarchy sent you, and for right now, let's jump into Mei-Mei. Now before I fully jump into Mei-Mei, I actually want to start with my thoughts on Season 6 so far first. I'll be honest, I like Season 6. I actually like that they decided to go back to the more episodic format, because I think a more episodic format with serialized plot points going on in the background just works better for this show. It works best when this show is essentially trying not to be more than it is. Now that isn't completely what they're not doing, considering they're trying to make this show span 14 seasons. How they are going to do that, do not ask me, I do not know. But I like that the side characters are getting more fleshed out. Nathaniel and Mark somehow became my all-time favorite characters from just one episode. However, I feel like this season's biggest flaw comes from our main duo. I'm particularly going to focus on my issues with Marinette in this section, and Adrien will be next, but their plot lines are either super boring or just super frustrating. They have cute scenes together, sure, but other than that, their romance is super bland to me, and that's because their conflicts don't feel genuine. In fact, it's so ingenuine that half the time they're just reusing plot lines for these two. For example, Marinette suddenly not knowing how to interact with Adrien in Illustrator, as suddenly acting like she's never interacted with this boy in her life, and that they're on their first date, when she was spending a lot of time with him and acting perfectly fine in Climatic Queen. Or the return of her stalking in Sublimation. I actually explained what I thought the issue was in a small cameo I did in Pistachiomi's video, which you should totally go watch by the way, and I'm just going to reread what I said here. In essence, the problem with Marinette ties back to a core flaw of the show, and that's that the writers have a fear of change. Marinette doesn't develop, and why she keeps resetting her character is because the writers don't know what to do with her outside of the initial ideas that they created for her. It doesn't help that the show was clearly made with a more episodic premise in mind, with overarching plot points coming on in the background. So when they decided to move to a more serialized narrative, they never exactly worked out how that would fully go and are kind of stuck in a weird limbo. If you want an example, it's kind of like how Ruby was post Volume 3. So another thing that could be contributing to the problem is the fact that the writers are writing Marinette in a more episodic mindset rather than the mindset of her being a main character in a serialized narrative. But back to the show itself, another issue that bogs down this season is the Gabriel lie plotline. I think it's a stupid plotline and it doesn't really add anything important to the story. I have a hard time caring about what would happen if Adrien found out, because any other time Adrien found out in this show, it was immediately reversed and there were no consequences. I also don't understand why the lie is so focused on Gabriel being Hawkmoth and not that Adrien is a Sentimonster, which in my opinion is way bigger of a plot twist. Gabriel was kind of a bad person and a bad father in and out of the mask, so I feel like Adrien learning what he did and learning the motivations for it probably would not have broken him so heavily, and he probably would be able to cope with it with his support system. Hell, the movie even proves this. Him being a Sentimonster, in my opinion, is much more damaging because when you think about it, the entire story stems from his very creation. His mother died for him, and that set off the domino effect that led to Gabriel doing what he did. That would break me if I found out, but it seems like the writers just completely forgot about this part of the plot point because it hasn't been brought up at all. In Where Papa, Ladybug has to break the rings that literally hold Adrien and Felix's amux, and we do not see her hesitating to do this, wondering what could happen to Adrien. For a second, she just breaks them, and only the Akuma comes out. I've seen a lot of people speculate on this and make a bunch of theories that these aren't the real rings and all that, but I'm gonna be real honest with y'all. I truly and utterly believe that the writers just forgot. I truly and utterly believe that they're either trying to softly retcon this plot line because it didn't really make much sense, or they just forgot about it. They just forgot about it. And it doesn't help that I don't even know why we're lying for Gabriel in the first place. I saw this tweet in a community post from the YouTuber MG. I'm gonna block out the name in the tweet just because I don't think this person deserves hate or anything, but the take is bad. The take is very bad. I'll be honest, the idea that Gabriel and Natalie are manipulating Marinette just doesn't work narratively for several reasons. Number one, because Marinette was given no reason to lie to Gabriel or anything that could be used as manipulation. He just told her, don't let Adrien see the villain I've become or something like that, and she just goes along with it. He didn't threaten her with any catastrophe or anything, he just told her don't do it. And not only did she do it, but she made it infinitely worse for herself by adding on to the lie for no reason by framing Gabriel as a hero and a martyr. Not one person told her to do that. She did that on her own accord. And number two, I feel like everyone's just kind of choosing to forget about the London special and forget about the fact that Marinette was the one that brought up the lie to Natalie, not the other way around. And while I do agree with the argument that Natalie should have immediately shut it down, I also don't think it's fair to claim that she manipulated Marinette from the start when she was not the original one that had the idea. And considering they're now in so deep and this lie essentially started probably a couple months ago, no duh she doesn't want Marinette second guessing on herself because it was her idea. Let's compare this to another example. Gwen from Spider-Verse. This is going to be spoilers for Across the Spider-Verse, by the way. I'm assuming you've seen it by now. But in Spider-Verse, Gwen lies, or more so omits to Miles, that he's an anomaly and that his dad is a canon event to be unalived. I have to use the nice YouTube words. She doesn't do this just because Miguel told her to, and frankly, even if she did, she'd probably have more so of a reason to do it than Marinette doing it for Gabriel, considering Miguel literally saved her from homelessness and, you know, being arrested by her own dad. But beyond that, she was essentially told that if Miles stopped this canon event, the entire multiverse would collapse. It makes sense why she didn't want to say anything. It's not just for his safety, it's for everyone's safety. For a more personal stake, let's look at Pearl from Steven Universe. She lies to everyone that Rose was Pink Diamond. Pink Diamond didn't want the people to know she was pink, so that way Gems could follow her of her own will. At least that's my interpretation of it. And as she wanted Pearl to keep the secret. She did this both as an order from her Diamond, but also because of her love and devotion to Pink Diamond. Arguably, also her love for the Gems and not wanting to tarnish their image of her and what they stood for. This heavily includes Steven. In universe, these lies have neither of these stakes. You could argue that Adrien knowing would turn him into Cat Blanc, but that doesn't work because Marinette doesn't know, for some reason, that Adrien is Cat Noir. Frankly, having her know Adrien's identity would really help this plot line, but I guess they just don't want to do that because we need to span this show out to 14 seasons. And the personal stakes doesn't work either because Marinette has no previous relationship with Gabriel. They had one good interactions in season 1 and 2, but frankly any other interaction they had after that was purely negative. I wish they would have just left all the Gabe stuff behind in season 5, so that way these two could just grow from it and get new plot lines. But that's enough of me ranting. Let's get into Mei-Mei, finally. On to our beloved Mei-Qi Fan Kalame, aka Lasanel. Her lore has had some significant changes, especially since I feel like in trying to incorporate more of her Chinese side, I completely steamrolled over her French side, and that wasn't cool. I want to be able to find a balance between the two. Mei-Qi is a 16-year-old fashion major freshly enrolled in DuPont College thanks to a little secret push and maybe a little secretly putting her portfolio into a lottery by her grandfather Jai Wei, who believed in her way more than she believes in herself. And frankly, she really needed that push because the year before, her parents had gotten divorced. Not messy, just a slow kind of heartbreak that kind of happens when love can't quite survive the weight of life, family, culture differences, dreams, things like that. It wasn't dramatic, but it left a big mark on Mei. Mei saw her parents as the pinnacle of love, but she also saw their love fall apart up close. And in the weird way that teens do, she started to chase love even harder. Not just romantic love, but any kind of love. Validation, affection, approval. She needs it like she needs air. If you've seen Winx, I feel like her handling of her parents' divorce is very similarly to how Stella handles her parents' divorce. At home, she lives with her mother and her grandfather Jai Wei in Paris's Chinatown. Her mom is a kind-hearted yet kind of frantic woman from Yangzhou. She's kind of strict and has an intense love that kind of feels like a pressure cooker. Think Mingli from Turning Red. She means well and she wants to protect Mei-Qi so badly that she ends up smothering her. Her dad, on the other hand, is a soft and sweet man who runs a bakery at the other side of town. But there's always this quiet distance between them. They don't really talk. Mei-Qi is caught in the middle, constantly bending to match whatever version of herself she thinks will make people stay, especially her parents. And then there's Elias, a boy at her school. He's kind of a golden retriever in model form. He's charming and gorgeous and effortlessly kind. He's one of, if not the most popular student at DuPont, a rising fashion model from his father's brand with a perfect smile and a reputation for being sweet to literally everyone. To Mei, he feels like something out of a romance drama that she watches with her mom. Like he glows when he's in a room. Every interaction, no matter how small, sends her spiraling. A shared glance, a compliment to her outfit, that's enough to build an entire daydream for her. As you can tell, she has kept her Delulu is the Salulu nature. She doesn't really know him all too well. In fact, it's kind of hard when you keep running away from him every time he tries to start a conversation, but in her head, he's already her soulmate. It's less about who Elias actually is and more about what he represents. The dream of being loved completely, effortlessly, and beautifully. That fantasy becomes comfort that she clings to, especially when real life becomes too messy to handle. I specifically wrote it like this so that way it will be more justifiable to be a slow burn. They both have kind of unhealthy images of each other that they need to learn to grow past, to look at each other as people before they even think about getting into a romantic relationship. Mei is clingy, creative, awkward, and deeply, deeply romantic in that hopelessly daydreamy kind of way. She writes mental fanfiction in her head. Her emotions are big and meshy, but they're also beautiful. They fuel her fashion, her art, and eventually her powers, because when she becomes Lasanel, everything changes. With Tiki by her side, Mei gains the power to bring her plans and ideas to life. Her main move, of course, is Lucky Charm. It's the same as when I described it in the Felix, Adrien, whatever video, where she has to get a piece of an overall creation that she needs to use to solve the problem. That way you still have the luck aspect while also bringing in her creativity. But her real strength is her creation ability. At full power, she can manifest almost everything from her imagination, as long as she has the focus to shape it and understands how it works and can picture it in her head. Think like Adam Eve from Invincible, except she can only create things, she can't like change things. I'm saving that for the GOAT Miraculous. As Lasanel, Mei-Qi is confident, graceful, and in control for the first time in her life. People admire her, she saves lives, she matters. And she starts to lean hard into that identity, not just because of responsibility, but because it's her escape from everything she's afraid of in her real life. Deadlines, awkward friendships, complicated feelings. Just put on the mask and be a hero. But Tiki isn't having it. She might be tiny, but she's very naggy. But she genuinely cares. She calls Mei-Qi out when she feels like she's avoiding her life and avoiding her feelings and getting into pretty toxic behaviors. She pushes her to be better, not just stronger but more honest. Though she does kind of have a habit of not listening, really mostly focusing on the ladybug side of things. Their relationship is tense sometimes, but it's very special. It's one of the few places that Mei learns what unconditional love actually looks like. At the end of the day, Mei's story is about learning to love herself without needing anyone else. To be loved not as Lasanelle, but as Mei, a messy, sensitive, daydreaming kid. And with that said, we can move on to my replacement for Adrien Agreste, Elias Dior. Now, I bet you're expecting to see Emmett in this section, but I'll actually be putting him on the shelf and giving him another role in the story, and this is for two reasons. Number one, I think Emmett works better in an anti-hero role, and number two, I realized I was kind of being a hypocrite. One of my biggest criticisms of Thomas is how it feels like he goes out of his way to erase Adrien as a character in favor of him propping up Marinette and replacing him with other characters like Alia. And what did I do? I pushed Adrien out as a protagonist and replaced him with Felix, or at least a version of Felix, and I feel bad. So this new Cat Noir is based on Adrien. Speaking of Adrien, I actually don't have a lot to say about him in season 6, but that's because Adrien Agreste is no longer a character. Adrien Agreste is nothing more than a shallow love interest, despite the fact that a lot of the plot centers around him. He's never allowed to interact with it, or really anyone, because his girlfriend needs to be front and center at all times. This is a big reason why Adrianette feels so bland to me in comparison to other couples in the show. You can't have a fleshed out character relationship without fleshed out characters who are able to stand by themselves and have their own goals and conflicts outside of said relationship. This is nothing new. In fact, I think it's a common mistake when writing character relationships, a big example being Bumblebee in Ruby. Please do not come to my house and crucify me, I beg, I plead. I like Bumblebee, I swear. Back to the couple we should be talking about, neither of their conflicts feel natural in their relationship. Most of them revolve around outside parties rather than balancing them out with inside ones. You could have introduced one in Sublimation. Instead of Adrien excusing Marinette's behavior and defending her to Sublime, you could have had her call her out and talk to her about her jealousy issues and insecurity. Anything! I will take anything from this character at this point, because at this point, Cat Noir doesn't even do anything. I'm at a point now where I don't even understand why he's a superhero. I've gotten comments claiming that the reason Adrien is so bland is because he's a sentimonster, and I'll be honest, and this is no hate to anybody who said this to me, but this is a stupid and bad excuse for poor character writing. Even characters who are intentionally written to be more boring and average like Peter Parker, or even unrealistically perfect like Homura Akemi, or even characters whose whole story centers around another character like Homura, have some sort of character that makes them entertaining to watch on screen. This also just doesn't work for two reasons in universe, more so three. Number one, Cat Noir is Adrien, and frankly, before they started removing his character, being a sentimonster has not made him bland and boring in any way. In fact, in earlier seasons, Cat Noir was probably the most entertaining character we watched. 2, Felix is also a sentimonster, and at least before his redemption was also a very interesting and compelling character to watch on screen with tons of personality. And 3, let's say you're right, Adrien has no one controlling him anymore. There's no reason for him to still be this bland, if not worse than any season before this coming into season 6. The reason Adrien is bland and boring is simply because Thomas does not care about Adrien Agreste. He only cares how he functions as Marinette's love interest and nothing else. And with that said, let's talk about my guy, Elias Dior. Elias Dior, or as the world will know him as Salem Noir, is what people call perfect. He's got the looks, the charm, the career. He's literally the fashion model to his father's various brands with the heart of gold and that kind of dreamy aura that makes entire hallways pause when he walks by. But in all honesty, Elias is tired of being perfect. Behind the smiles and soft compliments, he's holding in a lot. His mom passed away when he was a baby, and ever since, his father, Fabien Dior, the fashion mogul and frankly mogul of the entire creative industry, has tried to mold him into a legacy, a product, and not a person. Praise was rare and pressure was constant, so Elias learned to survive by being what everyone expected, flawless. But the real Elias is curious, he's messy, he's passionate, and he's weird in the best way. He likes mysteries and conspiracy theories. He thinks aliens are real. He likes to sneak out to thrift stores, build art out of trash, record broken sound clips for fun, make collages, and cut up magazines. All that chaos he hides in his core is who he is. And the one person he kind of feels understands him to a hardcore degree, even if she doesn't realize it, is Mei-Qi, a new scholarship student that feels like she has to be perfect every single time in order to save her keep. He doesn't have a crush on her, not really, at least not right now, but he has a desperate need to be her friend. He notices how she fades out of group conversations, how she keeps things light so people don't see how lonely she is. He gets it. He lived that way too. All he wants is to be her friend, to talk to her, sit near her, learn what makes her heart beat a little faster. But Mei keeps dodging him. Maybe because he feels too shiny or too intimidating, but either way, her distance only makes him want to get to know her more. Now this is where things get a little complicated, because at Salem Noir, he does have a crush. A very huge, ginormous one. Lassonelle is everything Elias wishes he could be. Bold, radiant, unafraid. She burns so brightly and he's drawn to the light like he could melt everything holding him together. He flirts with her constantly, dramatic compliments, poetic metaphors, and a whole slow motion heart in the eyes thing. But deep down, he wants to be someone she chooses, not because he's perfect, but because she sees him, because he's not perfect, because he's messy and chaotic, and he wants someone to love him for that side of himself. But as you may guess, he doesn't know that that's Mei-Qi, not yet. Now will I be dragging that reveal to the end of the series? No. But for right now, he doesn't know. As you may tell, with his powers, Elias holds Plague, the Black Cat Miraculous, if it wasn't obvious. His main move, Cataclysm, disintegrates whatever it touches. It's pretty much exactly like the original. But his real strength is how he can wield that corruption, because his secondary ability and his higher ability, Corrupt Touch, can erode systems, physical or abstract. He can break down logic and matter in sweeping areas. At full power, he can be a force to be reckoned with if he cannot figure out how to control it. But he's not reckless. To Elias, destruction is freedom. It's catharsis. It's the only time he's allowed to be messy, angry, or real. At Salem Noir, he's not playing a role, he's expressing himself. His fights are like a performing art. His costume is sleek and sharp. Frankly, looking a bit more like street clothes than a superhero outfit. His movements are jagged and unpredictable. He doesn't just tear things down, he remakes them from the wreckage. And underneath all that, he has one quiet dream for him and his twin brother Elias to one day open a mixed media studio in the memory of their late mother. A space for chaos, creation, and healing. Something built from the pieces of who they really are. Elias' story is about learning that you do not need to be flawless to be loved, that softness and destruction can coexist, and that even the most polished of boy can fall apart, and that's okay. And with all that said, we've reached the end of our video. I hope you guys like the art. Have I improved in my art and writing? Which designs do you like more? Let me know in the comment section. Comment a ladybug if you like Mei's designs more. Comment a cat if you liked Emmett's designs more. Or just tell me if you like, maybe you like the civilian design more than you like the hero design. Like, just tell me, let me know. I'm not sure what the rest of the series is gonna look like. I thought of designing everyone individually, but you guys seem to like the longer videos, so maybe I'll do maybe 2 at a time. Something like that. I'll figure it out. Thank you for putting up with me. Thank you to UnVale for sponsoring this video. Please check them out, and I'll see you guys next time. I promise it won't be in 2 months. Bye-bye!